Today we are going to be learning to graph straight lines, and we are going to be learning to find equations of a straight line that are parallel and perpendicular. Just be mindful as we are going through it. Please pause, and when I'm going through questions, have a go yourself first because everything we are doing is expected knowledge from year 10. So we know we've got our standard form. Our standard form is y equals mx plus c. From last session, we talked about how our m is the gradient and how our c is the y-intercept. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to be looking at is when we are graphing using gradient and y-intercept. So first thing, with our equation y equals 2x minus 2. Step 1, we need to identify the gradient and y-intercept. So straight away we can see our gradient here is 2 and our y-intercept is -2. The next part is we are going to plot the y-intercept on the graph. So that's this y-axis here and will be at -2. The next step is we are going to put the gradient on. So the gradient helps us find the second point. It's 2, and I wrote it down as 2 over 1, because that means we go across 1 and we go up 2. Then we draw a line through those 2 points. The other method is the x and y intercept. So straight away with this graph, to find the x-intercept, the first thing we need to think about is y is 0. To find the y-intercept, we just make x equals 0. So substitute, or we can say let, either way, same thing. So substitute y equals 0. So we've got 0 is equal to 2x minus 2. So I get 2 to the other side by plussing 2. That gives me 2 is equal to 2x. Finally, I have to divide by 2, and that gets me 1 equals x, or I can say x equals 1. That is, when x is 1, y is 0. If I wanted to find the y-intercept, we can clearly see it here from C, but I can do it this way in case it's not in this form. I substitute it in, and it leaves me with that C value there, which is y equals -2, and I write it as x is 0, y is -2. This is where I'm using the two intercepts to be able to graph it. So linear graphs with a rule in ax plus by equals 6. So for example, 2x plus 3y is equals 6. It's easier to graph using the x and y intercepts because you don't need to move anything around. As soon as you've made x 0, it cancels this term out and it leaves you with just 3y equals 6. Likewise, the opposite way, if I make y 0, it just leaves me that equation 2x equals 6. That's what we're going to be doing here. So if I let y equal 0, I'm just left here with 2x equals 6, and I divide and I get x equals 3. Likewise, with substituting x equals 0, I'm left with 3y equals 6. I divide, so that should be, so this should be, I divide by 3, and it equals 2. I can substitute, I can then put those points on my Cartesian plane and graph it. With the CAS calculator, just be mindful. It's you can either do it in this form or you can go into the graphing. You can type this in the equation. You can then tap on the graph icon and it will graph it for you. In the graphing area, if you click on Analyze, GSolve, just remember it's got the y-intercept there to tell you, and it's got root. Root just means x-intercept. So parallel lines never meet, even if they are carried on forever. So we can see that there's a constant gap between them. That's because the gradient is identical. The only thing that's different is their y-intercepts. Likewise, perpendicular lines. The way I like to think about them is we have a 90-degree angle. In other words, the gradients flip. So if we times them, so if I have one gradient here saying as a half, and the other gradient here will be -2/1. So the rise and run are flipped, and that creates a right angle. We also know with perpendicular lines that if I times the gradients together, it will give me -1. We can see that 1 times -2 is -2, 2 times 1 is 2, -2/2 is -1. So that's where the rule comes in. So the perpendicular line, I must have the rise and run flipped. One line's gradient is positive, the other line's gradient is negative. Let's have a go at some questions. Find the equation of the line which is perpendicular to y equals 2x plus 8 at the point 1, 10. So perpendicular to what is this one right here? So that means I know m1 is 2. So my second gradient, I must flip this. That means it will turn into a half. My first gradient was positive, so my second gradient is negative. So I've got that my gradient will be -0.5, and it says that here. I can double check that with the rule. Gradient 1 times gradient 2 equals -1. 2 times -1/2, that gives me -1. So we know our gradient. I'll tick that. That's the first part we need. We also need to know a point, and we've been told a point. So now we are using our point-intercept form, which is mx minus x1 is equal to y take away y1. I can then put my values in. So I know my gradient will be -1/2. So -1/2 in brackets x take away x1 equals y take away y1, which is 10. I will then expand my brackets. So that means -1/2 times x is -1/2 x. -1/2 times negative is positive. 1 times a half is a half. So it'll be +1/2 is equal to y take away 10. The last part to get y by itself, I need to add 10. So if I add 10 to both sides, it will be 10 plus a half, which will be 10.5. So I could write it as plus 10.5. Or I would be writing it as it's 21/2. Find an equation parallel to the line with the equation x plus 3y equals 5 and passes through 4 and -2. So the first thing, I'm just going to write down my equation that it's given me. X plus 3y is equal to 5. Now this is not in the standard form y equals mx plus c. That will make it easier to find a gradient, which is what I need for parallel. It must have the same gradient. So I'm going to take x from both sides. 3y is equal to -x plus 5. And then I'm going to divide everything by 3. So that means I would have here -1/3x plus 5/3. So I know my gradient must be the same. So I've just circled it. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to circle the point it goes through. So when I write point intercept form, m in brackets x take away x1 is equal to y take away y1. I'll just label this as x and y. I'm just substituting my value in. Negative 1 over 3, x take away negative 1 over 3 equals y take away, oops, sorry, I made a mistake there. Silly me, I just rewrote the gradient in. So I should have looked. My x value is 4 and my y value is negative 2. So I'll be taking away negative 2 there. I can expand this now. So negative 1 over 3 times x and negative 1 over 3 times negative 4. That will give me negative 1 over 3x. Negative and negative is a positive. So plus 4 over 3 is equal to y negative and a negative is a plus. So it'll be plus 2. I can then get y by itself if I take away 2 from both sides. So I'm left with 4 over 3 take away 2. So 4 over 3 take away 2 will be negative 2/3. Next question. Find the equation of the line which is perpendicular to y equals 5x plus 8 at the point 5 and 33. So same thing, perpendicular, I'll underline this. If that gradient is 5, then my second gradient for perpendicular line, I must flip it. So I flip 5 and it becomes 1 over 5. And then that was positive, so this must be negative. The next part, I'm going to use this point and substitute it in with my gradient into point intercept form. So that is mx take away x1 is equal to y take away y1. My gradient is negative 1 over 5, x take away 5 equals y take away 33. And the final step is I've got negative 1 over 5x. Negative times a negative is positive. 5 over 5 is 1. So it'll be plus 1 is equal to y take away 33. The last step is to add 33 to both sides. So 33 plus 1 equals 34. So I've got my equation of y equals negative 1 over 5x plus 34.